Okay, morning. Today's daily, I did it again. Daily game design, daily game design session. So I have something to debrief from yesterday's in-person playtest. By the way, I was really encouraged yesterday that um, when we finished, when we finished at the conference office with our game design meetup, I checked in with the group and asked with what kind of regularity they would like to be doing this. And a few people, and this is all we need, honestly, a few people said they'd be interested in about a pace of once a month. And I was really encouraged. And, partly, I'd say one of the main reasons that we only do summers is that when we first started, because we've been doing summers, like this is our third summer now doing game design meetups. And the first summer we did it at Armchair. Last summer we did it, wait a minute, at the conference office? Maybe we did 2 summers at Armchair? Maybe I'm misremembering everything about this. But almost certain we did this. This is our third summer. It might be our second summer. That's crazy. But anyway, Ming is kind of an anchor for what we're doing, mostly because, he'll bring a couple people, or I don't know. Basically, like, he's consistent. He brings his friend Dave, or Dave brings himself now. Dave is awesome, and except for Ming, it felt kind of like people were pretty random about their attendance. Great people, great game ideas, but not as consistent. And I'm not saying that's a problem. I mean, people are busy, but Ming, for some reason, was pretty motivated to come to the game design meetups. And so, because it's the summer, people, like, the school year is on pause, or they're on break, summer break. Ming works at a school during the school year, so I think he does through the summer too, to some extent. But anyway, everybody has more time in the summer, so it just seemed more likely to get more people to come out. Well, now after meeting yesterday and asking the group about their preference, it's we don't need any more than 3-4 people. We really don't. But to be able to move forward with confidence that we're going to get that many people is really encouraging. Because anyway, I don't want to be the only one with a design to actually look at and test. It's cool if people are really interested and would like to play whatever games I'm working on, but I don't feel great if it's just about me and my designs. Like, that's not the only reason. It's one of the reasons why I'm hosting these, is so I can get my games looked at. But it's not the only reason. I just love design. I like getting people together around design. I think it's really, really cool. So, anyway, it was really awesome yesterday that, we're going to try to aim for once a month. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how what kind of space we can use. So there's some interesting news from Ivan. Ivan is in charge of the space where we meet on Monday nights. And he wants to bring some big changes to that space, which I think that's going to be great. And I really like working with people who have a creative drive, who have intentions and big plans for the future. I really like that. Do I always like that when it affects me? Not always. But in this case, I think we'll find ways to work together and continue. Because, Monday nights, to me, I've expressed this several times, especially when it was coming up to our third year anniversary. Monday nights mean a lot to me. And based on the consistency of many of the people who come, I think it means a lot to them to have this space and to have this peculiar community for Monday nights. So anyway, I'm passionate about keeping that going. We'll see how that works. Anyway, one thing he wants to do is basically gut the storage area, and for sure, one reason this is gonna be happening is they are gonna replace the flooring in that area. I don't know what other big changes they'll make when they do that, but that means like moving all the games somewhere. You know what? Sometimes these deadlines help. They push me to figure out some of the things I need to figure out. Like I've had a lot of games just sitting in there that I know are not going to get played. I would like to sell them or give them away, but I just haven't had the courage to go in and sort everything and make that happen. So with a deadline in place, I mean, it was same thing with me moving out of my apartment with the church. It was, you got to get out. Like it's just not, that place is not for you anymore. And it wasn't said in that tone, but having a deadline is like, you got to go. Okay, well, let me figure that out. And now this great place, I have this great little place. By the way, it sounds like the first big test of my metal will be this this Christmas. I was really glad to hear my parents are considering coming out for Christmas and New Year's. I'd love to have them. One of the reasons why I thought I wanted to like upgrade to not a one room, but not one room in a shared house, but a one room apartment, is so that I could host people, including my parents. And I love my parents. I like being around them. It's been a long time since, you know, we spent a lot of time together. I mean, I go home once a year, something like that, and I do try to spend 2-3 weeks at home. But anyway, in such a small space, I don't know the last time. I mean, maybe the first, I don't know, that we like really stayed together like full time. Because here, the setup would be that I think I would give them my room. I think that would make the most sense. And then I would be sleeping out on the couch, pull-out bed. But, you know, I've got my life set up in here. I've got my streaming system set up. I've got, you know, I just have to figure out what to do about some of these things I'm getting used to, some of the routines I have. You know, and it is a small space, even though I could technically host people here, and I really want to. By the way, that invitation is open to you as well. If you're visiting Oahu and you're looking for a place to stay, I'm happy to talk with you about what I have here to offer. If you're not my parents, you're going to be sleeping out on the pull-out bed, just so you know. But you'll still have a place to sleep. Anyway, yeah, so I was excited to hear that they're interested in coming over. But even for me, when on the phone they said 2 or 3 weeks, I thought, wow, actually, I forgot that of course they're going to stay that long. And I'm thinking 2 or 3 weeks in this situation, of course, it's doable, right? I'm sure families, lots of families have, you know, they pull this off all the time. But I'm just not used to it. And, you know, this is the space that I'm defining. I'm getting to know. I'm enjoying moving around in this little space and, you know, deciding how things go. And anyway, it'd be interesting to have 2 other people in here living in here and trying to make sense of it, you know, adding their own little flavors. It would be a lot. And I think, well, it's doable. And I really want my parents to be here. so anyway, just kind of getting my head around what 2 or 3 weeks would look like has been a little bit of a challenge. But anyway, that should be a good one. Mostly excited for my parents to experience New Year's here, which is just wild. Like, it's just the coolest thing with all the fireworks going. Anyway, I am interested in moving on to actually designing this morning. However, you know, I'll talk a little bit more about what I noticed and some of the cool things that came out of yesterday's design meetup. One was that One was that we had a father son show up, and it was funny. So toward the end, actually no, it ended up being like the middle. Um, I we kind of took a break because of my friend Alfred. I'm much more intentional about picking some soft transition times. Like, hey, let's come back together. Let's see how things are going. And and so anyway, we took one of these pauses, and then this kid who I met Saturday night, he came up to me and asked, because I announced I was at the Vine with Ming and a bunch of people, and this kid Lincoln came up and asked about playtesting, what that would be like. So, and I mean like a 12-year-old. And I said, "You're welcome to come. I don't know how you're gonna get there." Anyway, so his dad brought him, and his dad's name is also Scott, which was very gratifying, very exciting. And so they joined. They sat down at the tables and participated and played. Maybe had a little feedback, maybe didn't. I mean, they were very new to the process, obviously. What was actually pretty cool is that apparently Scott, the father, who was there just as like a driver, had actually designed a couple things for fun. In like, one thing was in high school as an assignment, another thing I forget was maybe another school related thing, but he'd actually like tried it before. He's not really a gamer. He's played a few games, but doesn't really think of himself as a gamer. Certainly not a designer. But it was cool that he actually brought some experience. And I overheard, that he was participating throughout the session too, which is great. Anyway, so at this break, we were by the snack table, and I asked them how it was going, and they kind of looked like they were trying to leave. So I asked how it was going, and that's when I learned that Lincoln thought playtesting games meant playtesting video games. so he came, and here are all these weird people working on card games and board games and RPGs. And Lincoln had no idea, but they didn't leave. I don't know why they weren't just like, yeah, okay, cool. This is not what we expected. We'll see. I guess there's some social pressure when you show up to something, right? Anyway, that was a really fun little surprise. And they lasted and they did fine. I mean, I don't know that they would come again. I don't know if it was that interesting to them. But after that little exchange, we went back to, we circled up again, and one guy, explained some of what, one idea he has. And then the InaQuest folks came in, Amy, Andrew, and Carolyn. They did a blind play test with half of the group, and then we continued. Actually, I think we revisited my surfing game, and it was great. These two stuck it out basically to the end. I was like shocked. Scott was falling asleep halfway through, and anyway, they stuck it out, and I thought that was really great. A couple other things. It was, yeah, we actually had 3 groups right at first. There was another young man that he was turned out he was 18, or he's 18, and he had a war game concept that he was interested in. It was really very much the idea stage. He'd written a bunch of lore. When we actually met, so I said, I'm interested in chatting with you about this, and then my friend Seth sat down. It was the 4 of us. It was me, Seth, Kanaloa, who's the designer kid, and then his friend Marcelo. Marcelo's he's a cool guy that shows up. He's also young. I don't know how old he is, but he shows up to a bunch of the role playing stuff that Ming does. He's come out to camp before, I believe. Anyway, our little foursome sat down and started talking through Kanaloa's idea. And what was really fun, I mean, I think we may have talked a little too much, Seth and I, but we had a really, really good time like digging into and asking questions about Kanaloa's anticipated player experiences. So that's a cool frame, right? That's a cool lens to look through to focus on the content of the actual gameplay. Like, what components are we going to use? What are some of the basic standards for complexity? And one of the things that I brought up that I think is a really interesting problem in design is, how much should randomness explain the outcomes? I think the way I framed it was, how much do you want a player to feel like they were in control of the outcome? Let's say of a particular incident of combat, something like that. So that, how much you want players to feel like they were in control affects a few things. First of all, it deals with the problem of how much randomness is in the game, or shows up, or affects the outcomes of conflict, of an interaction. So how much does randomness define that? And then there are flavors of randomness. So a die roll, one roll is independent from the next. So that's high randomness, especially if you use a single die, right? The more dice you use, the flatter, or the more likely you are to determine, it seems, to determine some kind of probability, or to, no, of course, you're not trying to determine the probability. You can do that no matter how many dice you roll. But to get a preferred outcome, the more dice you roll, you're more likely to get the thing. Often a designer will allow the person to get the thing they wanted with the more dice they have, something like that. Okay, so there's a knob there, a dial there to turn. You can imagine that a draw deck, a deck of cards. This is like, I'm thinking of Gloomhaven now. You're often aware. Oh, let me check the stream here. You're often aware of what's in the deck, right? And if you don't shuffle every time, if you don't reshuffle every time, well, even let's say, okay, just assume you do shuffle every time. A 6-sided die, you can tweak the faces of the dice, right? And you can replicate that with a deck of 6 cards. You can have you can create a die out of 6 cards if you shuffle every time. But if you don't, and you remove a card from the deck, and you are aware of what's in the deck, then you're actually tweaking the probabilities with each card you draw, right? And so that's another flavor of randomness. So that's a fun thing to discuss with a designer, is what kind of influence do you want randomness to have, and when does the randomness happen? That's another thing that I think is super interesting. There's the whole input and output randomness discussion. Oh, we didn't even talk about that. I think we should have. But anyway, at some point during our discussion, he had this piece of paper on the table. There's a big, I don't know, maybe like 9x13 paper or something like that. And so my impulse is to put components out on the table and start playing a game and see what happens. And so I just dumped out some stuff, and it turned out that, well, he was designing a war game with an open map, some obstacles, and then there's movement, and then there was ranged weapons, melee fighting, that kind of stuff. Pretty standard, like kind of minis, wargaming, or skirmish battle type of game stuff. What I was really impressed with, and this is what I'll basically end here, I think. What I was really, really impressed with is that we offered these components to him, Kanaloa, and then and I basically just presented this idea. Okay, we have these components. How does your game work? And this young man was able to very, very quickly just choose some parameters. This game could have worked however, it could have worked a million different ways. But he went with his instinct. He went, he borrowed from his experience and just started writing rules essentially that the game would work by. And you know what? It was a real junk game. Like it wasn't great. It wasn't that interesting. But it was a game that he was able to brainstorm on the fly, just being presented these components and an area that we called a map. So it was really, really impressive. I would say, like, I would expect a lot of people, maybe less so designers, but I think people in general, and including some designers, to just like freeze up, have a lot of indecision in those moments. But he was making these real quick, like snap judgments. So he'd say like, well, how does line of sight work? You measure from the thing. You measure from the little circles that were out there. How far can you move? How many units can you activate each turn? How many, like, what are the stat lines on these units? Oh, okay, so the guys that are face up are 1 hit point. The guys that are face down, 2 hit points. And he could just riff. And I find that, I was so impressed by that. Because even for myself, but I think in general, this is something I would expect. I think there's a fear that, like, why would I even say this if I don't think it's a great idea, or if it's not going to produce the ideal game experience that I imagine? So why would I, how do I make a game perfect before we actually test something or try it? I think that's the impulse, and that certainly was mine for a long time, whether it's creating music or doing other creative things. It was, I don't really want to externalize my ideas until I have something that I think is really going to work. And that's fear-based. That's like a kind of perfectionism. And he did not display that whatsoever. He, like I said, I think, he probably just borrowed a lot from the other war games he's played, which is perfectly, acceptable. There's no reason not to do that. But just that snap judgment ability was incredible. And I think if he can employ that regularly, if he can just iterate that fast, try it, make some rule changes, try it again, make some rule changes, and just be in that brainstorming, iterating process consistently, I think he'll very quickly become a very, very capable designer. It was just awesome to watch. I don't think he's really designed anything before. Maybe he has, but it didn't seem like it. He didn't talk about anything else. So anyway, that was just really, really awesome to see from a young designer. And yeah, I hope we find ways of fostering that creativity. It was very cool. Okay, what about South Shore Vibes? So I'm going to bring that back. Okay, so South Shore Vibes, I'll get Sugar Shack back here in a little bit. So South Shore Vibes, what I really wanted from, you know what? I don't have my little fan running. I think my laptop is stressed. Where is it? I think it's in my car. Would it be worth? I think it might be worth it, honestly. I'm at 24 minutes. If I run out, grab my little fan, I might be able to save this stream. Yikes, because I'm definitely heating up here. Yeah, I wonder if I lost YouTube, actually. Okay, it is still alive. YouTube is still alive. I want to do it. I want to go grab. It's funny. I bought this little fan. I bought a little fan to like set on the side of where my laptop is suspended and just blow some extra air over it. And I think it honestly, I think it really makes a difference because this is not good. I am gonna do that. I'm gonna go run. I'm gonna check around here real quick for my fan, but I think I'm gonna have to run outside and get it. So I'll be right back. Okay, here's this little fan, and it's actually fancier than I needed, or fancier than I expected, honestly. and and the main function I doubt, or I don't think I'll ever use, is that you can it has a little tank, fill it with water, and then it like mists. So I need to get it. I need to get it going here. So I just set it right But I think I really need to cool down my laptop. So I'm gonna hear that for a little bit probably. Yeah, I think it was really struggling. I can see even OBS is not really moving. Yikes. Huh. Come on, stick with me. Okay, I think the fan is helping. Oh, even my camera stopped working. Wow, this is wild. Okay, let me just check this real quick. I'm gonna change it. Okay, we're back. The stream health is pretty good, but it was the actual video that was really struggling, or my camera had paused as well. Twitch is the best indication because it's the most current. So I think we're back on that. I think it's alive, right? Okay. It feels like a save. It feels like we just held ourselves together just now. Okay, anyway, so I'm back to talk through how the South Shore Vibes playtesting went. And you know what? I think my friend Jeremy just put words to a situation I was kind of thinking was present anyway. It's not my favorite thing, but I think he's right. And it was essentially this: that he wishes the game was basically all about surfing, and then all this other stuff felt kind of like it was just excess, like unnecessary. And you know what? The thing is, when I think about how the actual process of teaching the game, it's like, you know, it takes a while to explain each minigame. I don't know why minigames are attractive to me. Each one is a game. That's like the problem, right? So to teach South Shore Vibes, you have to teach 1, 2, 3 games before players actually learn about the real game, which is out here on the wave. So I felt it yesterday when I was just like talking for a long time, talking. And then eventually, you know, I walked everybody through the mini games. But I would teach the game broken up like this, where we would teach the mini games and then walk through the mini games, play them, and then play the wave. Well, I don't know how everybody would teach this game, but if you taught it in, like, you know, with everything all at once, that would be torture to like sit through just teaching the mini games and then teach how surfing actually works and all the details about surfing. Oh my goodness, that would be horrible. Like, that would not be fun. And anyway, the point is, I think the monologue. No, I just looked at the word monologue. I think the target audience is still semi-experienced gamers, but not like heavy gamers. You know, people who can sit through a 20 to 30 minute teach. That's not who this game should be for. I mean, at most, I would like the game to be teachable in 5 to 10 minutes, and that's already a lot of time, of teaching time. I don't know the last time you sat through a 5-minute teach, but that is way longer feeling than it sounds. So, like, I can teach No Thanks. It's a great little like kind of auction game, a bidding game actually. Super clever, super fun. It's one of my absolute favorites. It's definitely a favorite to teach. And I can teach that in like less than a minute and start playing in like less than a minute. But even that one, you know, with a few of the key rules and ideas, some people can already glaze over. Like after I say, okay, there are 35 cards, you know, 3 through whatever, and when it's your turn, you can either place a token or take the card or something. Like every sentence I say, I can see the person dying a little bit more. And this is a game that takes, like I said, less than a minute to teach. Like 2 minutes max, absolute max. And that's where we're actually taking turns, right? That's what's so brilliant about it. It's a great little game. It's just super fun, clever little game with awesome pressures. Like really just fundamentally difficult choices because you just don't know what's coming up in the deck. So it's this great, compact, very cool experience. And it's so fast to teach, but even that, not everybody can handle. Like they're overwhelmed with very few rules. So now to have a game, now to have this surfing game where you have to learn 3 mini games and then the main game, even though I know this is possible, I know I've played games like it actually. One of the inspirations is Merchant's Cove, where everybody literally has their own full game to play in front of them, and then they go play the game, the centralized game after. Like it's a lot to teach. And it's really fun. It's a cool game. Actually, I would like to play it again. But I don't want this game only to be accessible by people who can survive a long teach. So his feedback, I think, is right on, which is just cut all the mini games, make the focus the surfing. This is essentially what he said. I'm sorry, or the message I got. Wow, that's the wrong direction to sneeze. I'm so sorry. So I took it seriously, and then later we tried just with this sheet to see what was possible. So the question is, do I need excuse me. Do we need, well, okay, what does this do to the game? One thing it does is I think YouTube is doing better, right? I think so. Yeah, it should be okay. So one thing this does is it makes the game, in my view, it makes it less thematic. It makes it less thematically aligned with what I dreamed for this game, which was that the game would illustrate or display the lifestyle that I've really enjoyed with my friends surfing at a particular surf spot here in town on the South Shore. So that's what I was hoping for. And that includes, well, the main thing that we used to do that I thought was really fun was to surf skate around the parking lot. And I captured that here in the surf skating mini game. Also, a big part of what people do on that beach park is they fish off the break wall. or the wall that's right there. The wall is actually a really important feature of the beach park because it makes it kind of hard for people to climb down and go surfing. And that's what keeps the traffic down a little bit. But anyway, people will surf right off that wall. Fish. They'll fish right off the wall. And then, so anyway, I wanted some fishing in here. And then the stamina minigame is really, I mean, I don't know that people really paddle around just to get stronger. But it's a thing you could do, and it seemed to add to the game because it unlocks some things and gives you an upgrade. Because I really did want the feeling of progression in the game. I wanted you to feel stronger and better as the game moved through its rounds, like rounds 1 through 3. So that's why I think these kind of upgrades are cool, right? Getting another die. In fact, at some point you could get 2 more dice unlocked, or making the exhausted dice, exhausting 1 less die than before once you fully upgrade the stamina here. And then of course there are the actual upgrades that you could buy. I really wanted, I like this idea that you might have to choose between certain upgrades at different times, and that I wanted to offer a meaningful choice there. Like people could, they're choosing between. It's almost like different play styles. You could pick this play style this game, a different play style next game. So I like that. That's why I like the individual player boards, so that you could keep track of your own stuff and you could play these little games and get a little better, make some money, get stronger, and eventually get these upgrades. So the question yesterday became, if I cut all the mini games, is the game still interesting? And it looked like there were some really cool moments where the group was just surfing. And one thing I hadn't thought about, this is what Alfred pointed out, is that the way that the dice are kind of stacked up as the surfing is happening and people are working their way down the waves, it looks a little bit like the undulation of waves, which I thought was a very cool which I thought was a really neat observation. So that was cool. Just that one observation is like, cool, something about this concept is working. And when the guys just surfed, I could see, and one friend, actually Ming, expressed how he felt the tension of, surfers being on a party wave and kind of weaving in and out. And, and this would be like a big group of friends just all kind of messing around, having a good time out on a wave, where you are kind of competing to get down the wave, and you're willing to weave in and out and cut each other off, and maybe make somebody fall off the wave, that kind of thing, all in good fun. So that was cool that he said he felt that, picking a path down the wave kind of a thing. And also there was a really interesting moment at the end of one of the waves when there were 4 players and everybody's cruising down, getting closer to the points section. One of the guys talked through his turn and said, okay, I think, well, should I just move down? So I think he was sitting right here on this 4, and so he had the opportunity to jump down and go to this 1. So he had that opportunity. Or what he could do is jump into this 2, where somebody was coming down in this area. And so his thinking was, should I block the person going into the 2, or should I just drop in and stick with the 6 points? And of course he got like this big skill thing that I think he was going to get 4 extra points. So he was calculating, is it better for me overall to get more points or to deny my opponent points? That was his big question. And that's an appropriate question too, because because especially in a zero-sum game, it's not. Is it zero-sum? I mean, that what's good for me, or yes, is if what's good for me is also bad for you, then that's the kind of calculation you would make if you're trying to be optimal. So it could be that hurting you creates a gap in a score as much or more than me just going for the high point area, or me getting a good score may not be as good as me getting a decent score and me denying you scoring, right? So that was his consideration, which is a great min-max kind of thinking, which I love that. And I want to see that more. Well, so he did this calculation and he decided to drop into this spot right here to deny this guy points. I think he was right. Was he right here? I think he was right here. So what was awesome is that instead of accept his fate and drop into one of these two spots, he spent shakas to, he spent 3 shakas to choose a die face, and then he spent 2 shakas to jump. So in fact, what this other guy did was just jump from here, just jump right into the high point spot. So it was just great. Like, it's the kind of thing that, yes, there's a little mastery here. There's a little creative thinking here. Problem solving was happening, and that was beautiful to see. So my friend definitely didn't anticipate what this other guy was going to do. But with a little more experience, you would probably check somebody's shakas first. You would imagine, like, what can they do with those shakas? So that was just a really great moment to see somebody think through how a strategy, how to defend, from somebody getting certain points, and then to be outmaneuvered. And that's the key. Even that's even like the perfect word here, is to be outmaneuvered by another surfer, by another player. Because that's what they're doing. They're maneuvering down the waves. So anyway, that was really fun to see. So the wave in this hexagonal formulation is working. Even somebody, Dave, who had played it before, looked at the wave and thought, I like these hexes better. So Aaron, thanks so much for your feedback that led to fundamentally changing the map to hexes, from squares to hexes. So that was great. So anyway, I think there's great potential here. The game is working. It's not for everybody. Even the guy that, miscalculated a little bit, he said, yeah, this isn't really the game for me. But what was cool is he spent time on it. He thought through it. He worked on it. Even he and one other guy played through a couple more times and kind of thought through things. I actually want to remember to follow up and ask him if he'd had any more thoughts on the game. I kind of cut him off. There was a time when I think we were trying to leave or something, and actually it happened a couple times. I didn't mean to. I think I cut him off 2 or 3 times yesterday. So it was in service of the bigger picture, but it still doesn't always feel good to be interrupted or to have the group transition away quickly when you've got some momentum. So anyway, now what I think this comes down to, the question will be, is there's a lot to do to tweak these numbers in terms of both shakas and points. There's a lot to figure out if the mini games are gone. So, is it appropriate that moving diagonally on the wave, if you jump a spot, if you skip a spot, is it appropriate that costs 2 shakas? Should it cost more? Should it cost less? In this case, shakas are much more rare, because now you're not going, if these numbers and if these figures stay the same, then you're not going back to shore to earn more stuff. You're not playing a mini game to earn shakas. So should we bump up the number of shakas? Should actually, I really liked an idea from, I think it was Tyler yesterday at the very end of the day. Actually, we were wrapping up leaving, and he said something about, what if you could spend victory points as shakas? And so maybe that's the key. Maybe Maybe, oh, we don't even need shakas at all. Like they don't even need to have a symbol as a resource. I'll show you what I mean. Maybe. Huh. So it's just that these, here, let me just do this real quick. So these would just get replaced, right? Okay. So this is the idea. So rather than needing any of this stuff, right, you literally just anytime you would pay shakas, you just pay victory points instead. So that's it. What is less cool though is what to do in these cases. So it could be that like there's no consolation is the point. There's no consolation. Oh, what if these were coins? Because I wondered how to keep the upgrades viable as an idea. You know what? These upgrades, I'm realizing now, could just join this list of upgrades. So it looks like I have 5 upgrades right now that I could offer. So what if these were coins? Oh, what if these were coins? Yeah. It's an idea, for sure. This would change. This would become one of these. This adds a lot more, almost like continuity. Like, this is going to cut down on the teach like crazy. Right? Another one here. This is a little scary, but it's actually suddenly looking pretty good. Because it just simplifies everything, like, incredibly. Because this would be here, and you'd spend 2 points to do this. And then you'd spend 5 points to do this. Let's do another one here. What would I do without Canva? That's the main question at this moment. Okay, this comes right over here. Actually, I liked that. Okay, this is also 2. And then this comes in as a 5. You know what I was thinking too, right before I started streaming, is trying to reiterate the point here. Like, what's going on with me doing this? Like, why am I working on this game? Why am I working on games in general? Well, 4 coins might be too much. 5 coins might be too much. So I do anticipate pitching this game. I would like this game to be published. So I'm trying to get it to be in its best form possible, so that a company, a publisher, looks at it and thinks, "Wow, this is something that we could sell to our audience." And anyway, I think, because I believe there's something here. I think there's something fun about surfing, like a party wave. Everybody's on the wave and they're all shooting in and out of each other and just having a good time flying around on this wave. I think that's a cool idea, and I think mechanically it can be interesting. I love dice drafting, and so I think there's something to it. I think this is viable. So I'm not just designing for the sake of designing, although I think there's value to that. I'm designing with the intention of publishing. And I'm going slow. I'm only spending an hour or so on game design in general, and a lot of that ends up, I guess, turns out it's talking. And anyway, so it's not an efficient hour's worth of design, and I'm working on different games too. It's not just one game, right? So you know, it's a tricky thing to figure out what a good use of my time is here. One of the reasons why I chose to work on South Shore Vibes is I put it in the contest. That's another thing to keep in mind. I don't remember the timing of when that's all going to wrap up, actually. I'll come back and adjust these values, of course. So it is really exciting to completely revisit, reevaluate, you know, always with the eye on making a game better, more easily understood. Wow, that's the middle. Doesn't seem like it. Whoa, that's crazy. Okay, I'm just kind of shooting in the dark here. I think this would be worth 2. This actually doesn't feel quite right. I think you do want the upgrades sooner than later. So they should probably be achievable. Oh, this is where my friend Jack had another idea. Actually, I can do that really quick as well. I'll show you. Five money might be too much, but you know what? This is an independent currency, so I can just change. I can just change how much things cost. No big deal, right? Something like that. Okay. So now when you instead of shakas, there's still two currencies. There's still money that you can spend to get these upgrades. Okay, so the other upgrades, this looks, I hate this. This is kind of a almost like an OCD thing where I look at these numbers and I think these are not right. But when I zoom in, they sort of settle themselves differently. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm just trying to remember it doesn't matter. It's tricky for me sometimes. Okay, so then another idea that Jack had was that these skills could either be money or or victory points. So I like that idea a lot. In this case especially. So it's either let me get one of these. Let's go with this one. Right. So just oops. It's either money or get these lined up. Yeah, I already kind of like how this is going. Okay, dropped and then came back pretty quick. That was cool. Okay, well, this is an hour's worth of work for today. You can see where I'm going with this one, so I'm just going to finish this up this morning. I don't know that I have a sub job today. I'm still kind of waiting on that. Actually, it looks like I don't because I haven't gotten a text at 7:38. But I'm excited about some of these big changes, even just even in our little session just now. So some of these will need to change a little bit. Like I think this was just too long. I think these are just too long. Okay, and then I'll group these. That looks fine. Center it with this. One thing I wonder, like, how does Canva know which one I want centered on which one, right? How did it know to move this group instead of moving the box? I don't know. It's a mystery to me. So this is the idea here. That you can go for skills and get money or points. Thematically, what's going on? Nobody knows. Like, why are you earning money at the bottom of the wave? There's no explanation makes sense there. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. That's it for me. I will see you soon.